1, go.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of WAM America, I, Priya Dulapeta, one of the vice presidents of WAM, welcome you all for the fourth session of our fifth 5-session series, Discover Yourself. Special thank you for all those who have already are part of this journey, and also thank you for those who are attending today for the first time. It's never too late to be part of this journey, so better late than never. For those who are already part of these sessions, and for those who are new, I would like to give quick recap of our last 3 sessions, which was regarding search for happiness, whether God exists or not, who am I? So as part of these sessions, we try to get some answers to some of the questions that we have in our mind, like who am I? Why are we suffering? Why God is doing this? What is real happiness, etc. I'm sure we all have these questions during some phases of our life. We have discussed few of these in earlier sessions and will continue to discuss in today's and the next session. This course is designed and completely based from our holy book, Bhagavad Gita. This knowledge was spoken by Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God, to his dearest friend Arjuna. So Bhagavad Gita is a living manual, and a lot of people are striving to live based on these principles which are defined in Bhagavad Gita. Today's topic is why bad things happen to good people. I'm sure a lot of you have thought about this and have these questions in your mind. So without further ado, let me introduce our expert who can deep dive into this and take us in the journey of self-discovery and answer some of these questions that we have. She is a highly educated woman. She has done a master's in dentistry, and she's also worked in many dental clinics and other corporate companies. She was born and raised in southern parts of India in a pious family. By Lord's agreement, she came across Bhagavad Gita, which truly gave her a new life, and since then, she's living her life based on the principles of Bhagavad Gita. I would like to welcome our speaker for tonight, Mrs. Suvarnangi Shyama, who is a wonderful source of inspiration, very genuine human being, one who has most loving characteristics, compassion, and care for others, which is why she wants to share this knowledge selflessly with all of us. This knowledge has changed her life, and she wants to share it with others. Thank you all very much for giving us your precious time, and I hope that you will be a different person after this course. Over to you, Mrs. Suvarnangi Garu.
Welcome everyone. Namaste. So today is our 4th week session, why bad things happen to good people. So as usual, let's start with our prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you all for coming in today. So we had completed the previous 3-week session of self-discovery. In that, the first session, we had discussed about search for happiness. So we will just have a small recap of what we did. So the first session, we had seen what are our real problems. So and how we can identify those real problems and how we can solve that real problems to get our final destination. How is that possible? When we establish the relationship with our Supreme Father, that's how we can get the happiness. And the second week session, we saw like whether God exists, if he exists, whether he is one God or many God. So then finally we concluded in that week session that there are different types of, there is only one God, but there are different names. Like some call them as Krishna, some call them as, call him as Christ, and some call them as Allah. And we know like God exists, but we should understand who we are to understand God. So the third week session, we saw who are we and who am I, in which we discussed about like what is the difference between the body and the soul, whether we are the body or whether we are the soul. So now today we are going to discuss about the most important topic of the 5-week session, that is, why do bad things always happen to good people? This most of us in our life would have come across this question at least once, So let me share my screen. So please let me know if you can see the screen. I hope you can see my screen.
Yeah. Yes, we do. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, but it went away.
Yeah, it will come. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is our topic. Why do bad things happen to good people? So we saw like who is God and who am I, and we had seen even the material nature. So to understand why bad things happen to good people, we will understand like what is given in Bhagavad Gita. So there are 5 main topics actually discussed in Bhagavad Gita. The first one is Ishvara, God, who is the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And second topic is discussed as Jiva, the living entity, that is we. Like whether we are this, how we came to this world and what is our position in this world. And we are also a part and parcel of the God. And third topic discussed in Bhagavad Gita is Prakriti. That is the material nature. And the fourth topic discussed is Kala, time. Nothing happens without time in this material world. So time is very important part. And the fifth topic and the very, very important topic, karma, the activities, what we should do, what we should not do. So we had already discussed about Ishvara, the Supreme God, and then we saw like who am I, like whether we are this body or the soul, and so then we saw the material world. There are different types of miseries in this material world, like Adhyatmika Klesha, Adi Bhautika Klesha, and Adi Devika Klesha. That is the miseries caused by the self, the miseries caused by others, and the miseries caused by the natural disasters. So these are the things we had seen in the previous session. But there is inner, deeper, still we have to, see about the material nature that we would discuss today. So we will be discussing, we already finished discussing the first 2 topics in the previous session. So today we will be discussing the other 3 topics, that is remaining topic about material nature or Prakriti, and Kala, the time, and fourth topic, Karma, the activity. So this material world in Bhagavad Gita is compared to a prison house. So when we say prison house, what do we understand? Prison house is a place where persons who have committed mistakes, they have been punished and they have been sent to the prison house. That's what we understand about prison house. Why is this material world compared to prison house? Let's try to understand that. So the material world is compared to this prison house because we see all these miseries which we discussed quite a bit time ago, that we see the sufferings caused by other entities, the suffering caused by the disasters. All these are suffering. So this material world is full of sufferings, and this is why it is compared to a prison house. And why the living entity and the living entities live in this prison house. So the living entity, why are we here? Because we have committed some kind of mistake, and that's why we are in this house. What type of mistake we committed, that we wanted to live alone without God, and we just didn't want him, and we wanted to be separate and independent, and we wanted our own world. So that's how this material world was created. So now we understand that this material world is a prison house, and people who have committed the mistakes are in this prison house in the material world. How can we further understand that? How can we come out of this material world? Okay, so for that particularly, we should understand how we are bound to this material world. So the living entities are bound to this material world through connection with our desires to come into the material world. Let's try to understand by a very famous story which is given in Bible as well as in Bhagavad Gita, the Adam-Eve story. So the Adam and Eve were two people who lived in the Garden of Eden. So God had sent them this world because they wanted to live independently and happily. But God had instructed them that you should not consume anything like the food items which are present in this world. So they were enjoying, Adam and Eve were enjoying under the apple tree, they were happily enjoying, and all of a sudden a serpent came from the tree. And that time the serpent asked them, you should take this apple, this is so delicious, you should eat. Then Eve would say, no, I cannot consume this because God has instructed me that I should not consume anything in this world. Then the serpent would say, no, God instructed you because if you eat this apple, you would become God. And Eve then realized, oh, this is the reason. Then I should definitely take this so I can become God. So immediately that nature popped in. And then Eve and Adam both consumed that apple. As soon as they consumed the apple, they started seeing dualities in this material world. What are dualities? How can we understand what are dualities in this material world? So dualities in this material world is like only in this world we can see hot as well as cold, winter as well as summer, day and night, happiness and distress. So man and women, all these are the dualities. But how can we, so immediately after consuming that, Adam and Eve also started seeing these dualities. Until then they were happy, but later they started looking at themselves and they started, oh, you are naked, I am naked. You are man, I am woman. So they got all these dualities, and slowly they fall down into this material world. So how can this material world is compared to the prison house? Similarly, in the prison house, we have seen like different criminals are being put in different cells. Like for example, the pickpocketers will be in one type of cell, the murderers will be in another type of cell. Similarly, even the living entities within this material world is in different type of bodies, which are compared to different types of cells. For how can we understand that? So the human body is compared to a VIP or type A cell, and the animal body is compared to type B cell, and birds are compared to type C cell, and fourth one is like plants and trees, they are compared to type D cell. So how we have different types of cells in the prison house, similarly in the material world, different living entities are given different kind of bodies, but still they all are in the same prison house. And next, we can even think like, we can understand like another example by which we can understand the material world is like the puppet show. We would have all seen the puppet show, right? So we have puppets and the ropes are being tied and person usually holds on that, and then according to the person movement, the rope, the dolls move. Similarly, we are all in this world are controlled by the modes of material nature. There are three modes of material nature which control us, and according to that, we all act according to that particular mode under which we belong to. If you see, these modes are compared to, in other way, it's compared to the shackles. If you see, like in the prison house, the person who committed the mistake are always, controlled by the prisoner, as well as they are shackled. Similarly, the living entities in this material world are also shackled, based upon the mode they belong to. Like, for example, the three modes are the mode of goodness, mode of passion, and mode of ignorance. So the people who are in mode of goodness are compared to the golden shackle, who is having golden shackle. And people who are in mode of passion, tamaguna, they are compared to people who are having silver shackles. And the mode of ignorance, the people are compared to having the iron shackles. But all together, whether it is gold, silver, or iron, they are all shackled. In the sense, they are all controlled by the modes. So let's try to see what are the different characteristics of each mode, and let's try to get our biography, based upon the qualities what we have, and under which kind of mode do we belong to based upon those characteristics we see. And I want to add one point here is that always we do not belong to one particular mode. We keep changing. We belong to different modes at different time periods. Like, it is a combination of modes. How can we understand that? Like, for example, if you take in a day, in the morning, we get up early in the morning, we perform yoga, or we go to temple, or some may go to walking, some may do exercise. That period in the morning, it is mode of goodness. A person belongs to mode of goodness. Whereas after that, they get ready, they go to office to work hard, either catching a train or a bus, or through driving a car. They go to office and they really work really hard all the 8 hours, and then they come back. That period of working hard is mode of passion. That is, and then we see, like, if the person comes back from office after working so much, they will be very tired. So that is mode of ignorance, because they just eat, sleep, and mate and go to rest. That's it. So now let's see like which mode we belong to by looking deeply into each mode's characteristics. So the first one is the Sattva Guna, that is mode of goodness. Next is Rajaguna, mode of passion. Then Tamaguna, mode of ignorance. So person who is in Sattva Guna or mode of goodness, they would always want to be knowledgeable. They are always inquisitive. What is this? What is that? Who are we? They have all that kind of questions. Now, for example, we are all here. So we are all in mode of goodness because we're trying to get knowledge about the truth. And then, but this knowledge should be utilized to understand the higher purpose. Next, the person would want to live a sin-free life. They don't want to accumulate any kind of self. They want to be very nice. They want to have, they are kind of, they don't want to commit any mistakes, so that they don't want any kind of distress. And the third quality is like they are but conditioned by sense of happiness. How can we understand that? Like they want a person who is in mode of goodness, they want a good family, nice house, and opulent life, and everything should be happy, and they don't want any kind of distress. But they do not have the ability, or they do not want to inquire about the higher supreme truth. Next, let's see characteristic of the Rajaguna people, how they are. So a person who is in the mode of passion, they would have unlimited desires. When one desire gets over, they want the other, the other desire pops up, and then they want, eagerly they want to satisfy that desire, and eventually they will get another desire. This way it is unlimited, and always they are in distress because they get one desire and they'll be like, oh, I want to get that fulfilled. Next, I want to get that fulfilled. Anytime they won't be happy. Next, the second quality in the Rajaguna person is like they always want they perform all the fruitative activities. How can we understand this? Like nowadays you see a lot of people, they go to the priest and they say like, I want to get this done, I want to get this wish fulfilled. So then the priest would give a big list and he would say, okay, you should do this kind of puja, you should do this kind of yajna, so you can become, your wishes will be fulfilled. So they are always eager in that kind of activity. They want to spend their time as well as money on those activities and get benefited from that material. They want to get all that material benefits from that. And next, they also have a quality of attraction between man and women. Whereas persons who are in sattva guna or mode of goodness, they always try to suppress their attraction between man and women. They do not have that kind of attraction. Whereas people who are in mode of passion, they are always attracted to this kind of. And next is tamaguna or mode of ignorance. So persons who are in the mode of ignorance, they are always in madness. What do you mean by madness? What can we understand madness means? Madness means that they do not have the ability to say whether this is right or wrong. They, even though they perform the wrong thing, they say, oh, I'm doing the right thing, I will do this way, I will not change for anybody, this is my way, I will do this way, this is right. That kind of quality they would have. And next, they would always be lazy. They want to sleep for 10 to 12 hours a day and they want to enjoy that sleeping. And next, if you see, their another quality is like they want to they don't want to do any kind of work and they want to just enjoy, get intoxicated, like going to bars or drug addiction, or they want to consume alcohol or food, from bar and restaurants. So these are the qualities of different mode. So now we understand that we do not belong to one particular mode, because throughout the day it keeps changing. We keep jumping from goodness to passion to ignorance, because sometimes we may be inquisitive to know what it is, and next we may have some kind of desire that we want this, so that time we are in mode of passion, and then we feel lazy to do, and we may feel sleepy at times. So that way we are in a combination of different types of mode rather than in one particular mode. So how can we come out of these modes? That we would, there are certain activities that we should perform, so that way we can elevate ourselves from the modes and we can come out of these modes. That we would discuss in next week's session. So now, until now, we had discussed the material nature, Prakriti, how we are attached to this Prakriti. And one more thing I would like to add here is the modes are one which is controlled by the Supreme Controller, the God. For example, one may say that, okay, this mode is acting upon me, that's why I'm behaving like this, so that's why I'm committing sinful activities. But that is not the fact. Our desire, what we have, that is one which connects ourselves to the mode. How can we understand? For example, a person wants to go to a liquor shop. He has that desire. So, and then immediately in Paramatma within our heart, that is Krishna himself, would, instruct the modes, that particular mode to act upon the person at that particular time. So then immediate, because Paramatma is the one who controls this mode, and we saw in the last session that God's material energy, it is a material energy, so this modes belong to the material energy of the Lord. And then the person, who wants to, he would have developed that desire, and then he would go to the liquor shop, he would spend his time, his money, and then he would enjoy that. So that's how it is like, satisfying his desires, and that's how. So don't get discouraged. This is not like, only the modes can control, only according to the mode we can act. No, it is according to the desire what we have. So one should desire the right thing, so that way we can come out of these modes. And or if we have the right desire, the modes itself will give us that energy, it'll act upon us, so that way we can bypass all this unnecessary activities. So the next topic discussed was Kala, time in Bhagavad Gita. So time is the very potential factor in this material world. In the spiritual world, there is no time at all. But in the material world, everything happens according to the time. How can we understand this? We had seen in the previous session that the body transformation, like the body, the living entity transforms from the boyhood to youth to old age and then disease and death. So these are the 6 transformation that happens. This is all related to the time. And similarly, we can even see like that in Bhagavad Gita it is mentioned that Krishna himself says that I am the controller of time. I am the energy of the time. I am time myself. So people who do not believe in me, they meet me as death. That's what Krishna has mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. And we also see that this material world, we have heard that this Kali Yuga exists only for this particular time period, that is 4,32,000 years, million years. So that's the time period for the Kali Yuga. So once this time is over, the next yuga would come. There is partial annihilation, and then the next yuga would come. So this way, everything is tied up with time in this material world. Next is the most important topic of today, that is karma. Karma is the activity, like what we have to do, what we should not do, and how we should do. So let's see first the definition of karma. So activities that are performed by the living entities, they are conditioned by these 3 modes under the control and purview of the time. That is karma. Whatever activity we perform, it is considered as karma. And we had seen in the previous session about the law of karma too. Like why few people are born rich, few are born, poor, few are like beautiful, few are ugly. Why is this? This is because of the karma, the activities which they accumulated in the previous life. So what is law of karma? So every action what we perform, there is an equal and opposite reaction. And for every action what we perform, we are only accountable for what we are going to do. And we are responsible for what consequence we are going to face too. So, and we even saw that the law of karma is only applicable to humans. It is not applicable to the animals, because humans are special because they have the intelligence. They can decide what they're doing, what they should not do. Next, the humans are compared to the train junction. Why are they compared to train junction? Let's understand what a train junction first. Then we can discuss about why humans are compared to train junction. Because train junction is a place where, people get down and people get in according to their destination, whether they want to get down or they continue their journey. through that in that particular junction, right? Similarly, we have got this human life after 8 million, after crossing 8,400,000 species, from the lowest species going slowly towards the upper end, and finally we have reached to get a human life. So the humans are given the ability that we are in that junction, whether we want to go back home, back to Godhead, or we still want to, come back to the cycle of birth and death. That is the intelligence what we have as humans. And then, even though we are in this in the human form, but we do not have that knowledge. And how can we get this knowledge? Some may say, like, I don't know what is law of karma. Where can I find this? And how can I follow this? All that they would ask. So our law of karma is being described clearly, what we have to do, what we need not do, how we should do in Bhagavad Gita. That is the user manual for our human life. So how can we understand user manual? Like when we get an appliance, at home, we get a user manual along. We get a user manual book along, like how we should use this, how we should not use this. If we do this, what would happen to that? And if we do this, what can go wrong? All that instruction and the troubleshooting, everything would be given in the user manual. Similarly, Bhagavad Gita is being given to us by the Supreme Lord, in which we had given instructions, the laws, what we should do, what we should not do, and how we should do. Next, let's see, try to, get a deeper thinking of law of karma. So here we see different type. Now we can see the different types of karma deeper. Like, what is good karma and what is bad karma? Good karma is when we perform any kind of good activities, we accumulate good karma. And if we perform any kind of bad activities, then we like impious activities, like cheating, all that we accumulate the sinful activity account. So we would accumulate bad karma. But karma is kind of, it's kind of complicated, but I'm giving the fact from Bhagavad Gita, so it will be kind of difficult for us to digest when we hear this. But this is the fact, my dear friends, given in Bhagavad Gita. So please hear very carefully. So, for example, the karma depends upon the time, place, and circumstances as well. Whether it's good karma or bad karma. How can we decide that? For example, let's take an example of a thief who enters a house, he breaks into a house, and then he tries to steal whatever he wants, the valuable things, and he gets away. So that is a sinful activity. But similarly, if a person breaks into a house which is in fire to save the people in that house, that is a good karma. It cannot be a sinful activity, because that person is breaking into the house, but with the purpose of doing something good to that family, to save that family. So that is good karma. Now let's see what is sin. We would have heard in every time we hear this word, sin, sin, sin. So what is the real definition of sin? So any kind of disobedience to laws of God, the laws of God is given in Bhagavad Gita. So any kind of disobedience to this law of God, we will incur sin. So let's see now, as I was saying, we can see good karma, bad karma. Now we are going to see instant karma and delayed karma. What do we mean by instant karma? So instant karma is karma, like when we perform some kind of activity and instantly we get the result. How can we understand? Let's take an example for that. So we eat something very heavily in the morning, okay, and by the evening we have stomach upset. So that can be an instant karma. We are getting the results immediately. What do we mean by delayed karma? So delayed karma is we perform an activity and we get the results either after few months or few years or in the next life. Let's take an example. So if someone had fallen, somewhere they fell down and they got hurt. At that moment of period, they didn't have any pain. But eventually, after years, if you see, that caused a complicated problem. There was a health issue. So that is delayed karma. And even from our scriptures, Mahabharata, to the Dhritarashtra. So Dhritarashtra asked Krishna, like, why I'm born like blind and why I lost my 100 children? What is the reason I'm undergoing so much of sufferings in this life? So Krishna, for that question, he replied that Dhritarashtra, that you had in the he had committed 50 life births before he was a hunter. Dhritarashtra was a hunter. So 50 births before you were a hunter and you blinded birds. You pulled out the eyes from the bird and you blinded the bird. As well as you had set fire to the nest which had 100 birds in it. So this is the answer Krishna gave. And Dhritarashtra was like, okay, then why am I suffering after 50 life births? What is the reason? Why is it so long? So then Krishna mentioned that to get 100 sons, you had to undergo 50 births and accumulate all the pious credit. Because to get children, we need to accumulate pious activity, karma. So that's how we can get children. To get children, it's not easy. So he had to accumulate 50 life births of pious karma to get 100 sons. So that is how. This is another example for delayed karma. And what is individual karma and collective karma? So individual karma is like when we perform an activity and we ourselves, have the reaction. We perform the action and we have ourselves the reaction. But collective karma is something like when one person performs and others also get that reaction. How can we understand? Like, let's take an example of a family. So in a family, if someone is not feeling well and ill, so the other family members also have to undergo that suffering. They will feel, they will also get affected by that illness, right? So that is example of collective karma. And now in this COVID situation, Corona, we are all children of God. We are all one family. But there are many people who are not following this law of karma. That is the reason the whole family is suffering, undergoing all the situations. And we can even take another example again from a family. When the head of the family is trying to earn money against the law of karma, when they are not following the law and they perform any activity against the law of karma and they earn that money, and finally even the family members, when the head of the family earns, even the family members enjoy that. They also enjoy that money. They utilize that money in their activities. So that way they also, end up in committing the sinful activity. So this kind of karma together is collective karma. So now one may ask, if everything is predestined, then why should, what is the reason? What is the reason that I have to work, or why should even I work? When everything is decided earlier itself. Because of karma, I will be this way in this life and everything. But we should understand that without working, one cannot live in this material world, because everyone have to work when they are in this in this material world. Some may say that, no, I don't want to work, I just want to sit. That is not possible, because eating, sleeping, and even breathing, that is at least breathing, that is also an activity. Because while breathing, we kill many bacteria. That is also accumulating karma. Eating, That is also, we are doing some kind of activity. We cannot say that we cannot do any kind of activity and live in this material world. My dear friends, we have to undergo this karma. Let's for example, how can we understand an easier version? Like, if a person wants to become a doctor, in this material world, like when they want to become a doctor, yeah, they'd say, like, I have my previous birth's pious credits, so I need not study, I can just sit, so I'll become doctor. That is not possible. We have to have the desire, as well as we have to work hard and put in our energy to get that goal, and simultaneously our activities will fall in, and then we would become a doctor. We cannot just sit as such. So now let's see the next, like, how people would say, like, one way is like, when everything is predestined, why should I work? The other way is like, oh, I didn't even know there is law of karma, and they give some kind of excuses. So that's why I was performing all these activities. We cannot say this. For example, if we are going to some kind of, we are going to a new country, and we get to drive a car, and then when we drive a car and we go against the rules, and the cop comes and catches us, he will, when if we say the same reason, like, oh, I didn't know the law of this country, that's why I had drove in a wrong way, will the cop accept? No, the cop would not accept. The cop would say, you have to get a ticket and you have to pay the fine because you broke the law. And you cannot say that you didn't know the law, then you should have not drove the car. That is the reason, the cop would give. Similarly, when we are in this world, it is our responsibility to know what is the law in this particular world and how we should behave, how we should not behave. So we are responsible, and we cannot give any kind of excuses and say that I don't know, that's why I perform this sinful activities. So next, some may even say that, like, okay, I did bad karma, now I will do my good karma, and both will, kind of cancel, and it will equalize. No, that is not possible, because good karma has its own account, separate account maintained, and the bad karma also has its own separate account maintained. So both cannot cancel. It will be the pious good karma, and the pious activity will be accumulated in its own account, and the bad karma will be accumulated in its own account. So that's how it cannot be cancelled. Now we had heard all about karma, kala, and prakriti. Let's have a small quiz time from the same what I had conveyed. So what would please type in your answers in the chat box. Why bad things happen to good people? What do you think the option would be now after hearing the class? Option 1, God gives all troubles. Option 2, due to our past karma. 3, due to our present karma. 4, it will never happen. Let's make it interactive. Due to past karma. Excellent. Excellent. All have given the right answer. Wonderful. So the answer is due to our past karma. Next question. Due to ignorance, we cannot escape from sinful reaction. Is it true or false? Please type in your answers in the chat box. Excellent. Excellent answers. Wonderful. Yes, it is true. We cannot escape from the sinful reaction. Good and bad karma, can it cancel each other? True or false? Oh, thank you. Thank you all for your answers. Wonderful. Yes, it is false. I see one person who had answered true. So good and bad karma cannot cancel because they have their own accounts. Because good karma, whenever we perform, it will be in its own account, and the bad karma, whatever we perform, will be in bad account. Because we cannot say like we do 10 bad karmas and then we do one good, it will cancel. No, that is not the way. Thank you. I hope you understood. Thank you. So next, let's see a famous author in America who had written the top selling books about God, spirituality, and Christianity. So her name is Annie Graham. Once she was invited for a TV show and she was interviewed by the TV anchor. This was during that September 11th disaster, the crash which happened. So that time the anchor had asked, how could God let something happen like this? How can this attack happen? God should have stopped it, right? So then she she responded in such a way that she was saying that God also would have deeply saddened by this incident. And she also continued, she gave an example like to explain the statement, she gave an example that, for example, the example was like children going to the school nowadays. The school, if the children are misbehaving, the school doesn't want to punish them because their school reputation would kind of go down and they get defamed. And then the parents also would say like, don't scold my child, or don't kind of be rude to my child, because even though he misbehaves, that's how even the parents protect. So that way the child grows up with those attitude and they will not be disciplined. And finally, one day, without that discipline, they would come out of the school and they would have the same behavior even after going into adult. And finally, what they do? They either kill themselves, they kill their friends, or they kill their strangers. Because they don't know what is the right. And that time, if we go say that why my child is behaving like that, I don't know why my child is behaving this way. I don't know how to, correct him. No, that is because we didn't correct him at the beginning. The child is already crossed that, and they are in that mood, and they don't know what is right. So whatever we sow, that's what we reap. That is the answer she had given to that TV show person. And then she also told that now, after this incident happened, we had trashed the God and we have come here. And now we wonder why God is doing this, why God is doing that, and why He's not doing good to me. How can we ask that question when we had literally trashed the God? And she meant that everybody wants to read the newspaper, hear the news, but nobody wants to read about Bible and the instruction given by God in Bible. Many people nowadays they want to send jokes about even the wildfire in emails or phone, but nobody, when they want to discuss about anything about God or send a message about God, they would think 100 times or lot of times, many times. Like they want to think, oh, shall I send this message or no? What will the other person think? Like whether they will think that I'm an old-fashioned person, because now the technology has improved. Everybody is fast and nobody wants to know about God. And if I tell something about God, they would think and they would isolate me. So that is the attitude. So everybody in workplace or at school, everywhere we just suppress the topic of God. And now let's discuss about different types of karma. Karma is like whatever activities we perform, whether it's good or bad. So that comes under karma. And vikarma especially is when someone performs any kind of sinful activities, it is considered as vikarma. So now one can say that, okay, now I will stop doing all my sinful activities, so that way I can get liberated from this material world. But that is not possible, because if you do only good karma also, we would come back to this material world. Because how can we understand that we perform some good activity, we get our pious activity credit, we get all the good karma accumulated. To enjoy that actions, the reactions, enjoy that pious credit, we have to come back to this material world again. So this is where we can again enjoy all that credit, right? So that way we accumulate good karma also. We are again tied up to the cycle of birth and death. And again we come back to enjoy in this material world. So then, but you don't, but what should we do? How can we come out? What karma should we perform? That will be our question. So we have to perform a karma. A karma is any kind of activity in which we put God as the center, and we perform any kind of activity for the pleasure of the God and for his satisfaction. Any activity we do, when we do it for his satisfaction, then that is not considered as karma. It is a karma. So what kind of activities are a karma? That we would see in the next session. So today's last slide and conclusion, let's say, so this whole life, what we go throughout this life is kind of preparation. And the real exam is the death. Because we saw in the previous session, whatever we think at the time of death, that is what we attain in the next life. Similarly, what we do throughout our life, and that's what we remember at the time of death, right? How can we understand this in a simplified version? Like, for example, we do some kind of activity throughout the day from morning to night, and when we go to bed, we have a kind of recap going on in our mind, right? What happened since morning? That will be like a fast flashback. So that's what we do when we go to sleep, right? Similarly, at the time of death, whatever we do throughout our life, it will come like a flash. We'll have a very rapid flashback, like a movie, what we did throughout the life, all the activities. And at a particular point, we get attached. We would have been attached to some kind of incident. So that is what we think at the time of death. But to think the right thing, when we think about something which is not related and which is related to this material world, we would come back again to life. We would come back again to the cycle of life and birth and death. But if we think about God at the point of death, then we would go back home definitely to Godhead, right? But for this, we have to prepare our life in such a way that at any moment we would only think about the God. So let's see what kind of practices we can do and what we can do to modify our life in the next week's session. So we came to an end. If anybody has any questions, please you can unmute and ask your questions. Is there any questions for anybody? Okay. I hope everything was clear then. No one has any questions. I see someone has raised their hand.
But if you want to get in devotional service, if there's no way to get out of karma, is there a way to get out of karma?
Yes, if you want to know the answer, you have to come to next week's session. I would explain in detail what we can do to get out of this karma and what we should do to get a karma.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So thank you so much, VAM members, for allowing me to speak about God here and giving the message of God. And thank you for all your support throughout all these sessions. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Suvarnangi. Yeah. Thank you so much, Mrs. Suvarnangi Shwamagaru, for this valuable knowledge that you have shared with all of us. I'm sure some questions have been answered, and we look forward for the next session next week. Thank you once again. Thank you everyone for joining today. And we have these sessions recorded on YouTube. In case anybody has missed it, please share it with your friends so that everybody gets the benefit and knowledge about what we discussed in the last 4 sessions. Looking forward for you all to join in the next session, which we have next Wednesday, which is our last session in the journey of self-discovery.